Good afternoon, everyone. I am Casey. I am the Rumble Right Dad, and I have been a therapist and social worker for more than 13 years, and I have seen the rise of ideologies that are quite frankly unaliving men. And I wanted to review this article from Richard Reeves, published on the American Institute for Boys and Men. I will show some of the data in the sidebar over here. Let's get into it. This is a channel devoted to the strengthening of America's men because, quite frankly, no one else will tell you you deserve it. But as a master's student in psychology and as a therapist for a long time, I am here to encourage you, along with tell the truth about how toxic ideologies have been hurting our country and our country's men for some time. And that is well covered in this article by Richard Reeves, again from the American Institutes for Boys and Men. It is an excellent read and an excellent website to follow. Let's see some of the data. Firstly, Richard covers that all men, no matter what ethnicity, have a propensity to pass away earlier than their lady cohorts. Now, that isn't probably a revelation. Men do riskier jobs. Men do riskier things. We don't have to surf the internet for very long to see that is the case. But this trend is growing in the wrong direction for men and boys as they have an increasing amount of deaths of despair. Let's watch a little bit of that data unfold. Men face a rate of unaliving themselves at nearly 4 times that of women. Now, part of this I understand to be the route of administration of that attempt to unalive themselves, as men typically are more aggressive than ladies in the route that they attempt to take. However, a lot of this can also be correlated with the fact that they've been told that they aren't any good for the last several years. And as that increases, lo and behold, so does the rate of men taking their own selves out of the mix. Men are also more prone to accidental deaths from drug use. Now, this wouldn't probably be a surprise as per the last demographic that we looked at. Men take risks at higher rates than ladies do, and that would probably come into account with substance use as well. I've been a substance use counselor for more than a decade, and this isn't a surprise to most of us. What might be surprising is that they are taking an even increased share of the amount of passing away from substance use. So they are increasing in their share of it, which means that they are going at it harder than they did even a decade ago in comparison to their female counterparts. Now, reading from Richard Reeves' article, I would take some direct quotes here, and then I'm going to disagree with some of what he has to say, but it's still a very valuable asset to have the American Institute of Boys and Men. Now, reading directly from the article, he says, among men and young men, especially rates of addiction and isolation, substance use are all rising. But too often men struggle in silence and do not seek out help. Now, here's where I will take umbrage with some of what is considered. And I've written some papers on this that I've submitted to legislators. The ways that they are getting help is oftentimes unhelpful for men, driven by females, and typically unhelpful. All we have to do is look at the outcomes, which are increasing rates of all of these issues, mental health issues and addiction issues among men, but also the outcomes when someone leaves treatment for substance use typically, are not very good. They may stay sober for 6 months at like a 15% clip. So even the help that they might seek could be unuseful. And part of that is because it's catered more towards what would be ordinarily helpful for young ladies, which is, group therapy and other things that men just typically don't have as healthy a response to as women, because ruminating on their feelings is not as helpful for men as it is for ladies. He says substance use and all those issues are rising, but too often men struggle in silence. It's incredibly important that we break down the stigma. Now, the stigma for seeking mental health care might be, something that needs broken down in some instances, but mental health care is much more available than it ever has been. Men are seeking it at higher rates than they ever have in the past, and they are still having worsening outcomes. So obviously something about the way that the healthcare is being driven is ineffective. And that's what I've written extensively about. If anybody wants to read 30 pages that will make you either angry or want to fall asleep, I will send it to you. Just hit me up in the email. This June, we're doing our part. This is the American Institute of Boys and Men. We're doing our part in raising awareness around these men's health issues with more advocacy and more support. Now, I do support Richard Reeves, and I do think he has some of his conclusions right. I do think some of his analysis of boys and men in the educational sphere can be worth looking into, among many other things. However, again, we need to reform the way that men are getting treatment. They recover better foot to foot, meaning pressing forward toward a goal than they would just encountering information and holding hands in a circle. He says, better access to healthcare and focusing on mental health issues and creating supportive environments for boys and men. Now, that does hold some meaning in that if you create a place where they can learn how to be a carpenter, or a place where they have workforce development, or a place where they might enter into meaningful life activities like relationship coaching and actually assisting them in finding willful mates that are good for them and might have some integrity, then in that case, they might have meaning and purpose, which would present them as more likely to recover from these issues. Now, I would encourage anyone to go join and ascribe to the American Institute of Boys and Men. However, although the diagnosis might be right that men and all these issues are struggling, perhaps what he's getting wrong is the root cause, which could be some of the ways that men have just been cast asunder in recent decades, along with the fact that the treatment that they are receiving is not what is best for boys and men. Let's get it right. Richard Reeves, I would love to work together with you. I've reached out to your organization. But until then, I'll just continue writing and telling people what I see. Let's go. Do this together. We can all recover men and masculinity in America. I'd love your help. Rumble Right Dad is a free side hustle for me that is not yet monetized. I would love your help in getting there. So please share this video with a friend. If it can be any service to any men who are out here feeling like they're crawling uphill alone, let's do this together.